The Void Empire had cast its shadow across the galaxy for centuries, an endless darkness that consumed worlds, civilizations, and hope. Earth, once a thriving cradle of humanity, was now a decimated husk. The Void's relentless war had decimated all but the last remnants of human resistance, scattered into small, disparate groups fighting a losing battle. The great cities lay in ruins, and the very air was thick with ash. Yet, amidst the devastation, there remained a flicker of defiance. In a hidden base beneath the crumbling remnants of the old Earth capital, Captain Lena Maris surveyed the war-torn world from a makeshift command center. The stars overhead were obscured by the smog and dust that the Void Empire's war machines had left in their wake. Her team of rebels, the last hope for humanity's survival, had spent years scrounging for scraps of the ancient world, hoping to find a way to fight back. But nothing they had found could match the overwhelming might of the Void. Lena's fingers brushed over the faded map on the screen, tracing the outlines of old cities, long-forgotten relics, and broken highways. Her team had discovered the coordinates of an ancient site, buried deep beneath the ruins of an old civilization. Rumors among the scattered survivors had whispered of something hidden there, something that might offer a chance at humanity's salvation. "Captain, we've detected an anomaly." A voice broke through the quiet hum of the command center. It was Lieutenant Marcus, her most trusted officer, standing over a console, eyes wide with urgency. "It's the Dawn Key. It's real. It's in the ruins of New Paris." Lena's heart skipped a beat. The Dawn Key, the artifact of legend, rumored to be a tool of unimaginable power, hidden away by humanity's ancestors before their fall. If it was truly there, it could be their chance. The artifact was said to harness the latent energy of the universe, a force so powerful it could turn the tide of the war. But there was a catch. No one knew how to wield it, or even what it truly was. The Void had long searched for it, but it had never been found. Until now. "Prepare the team," Lena ordered, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "We leave in 20 minutes. Full gear, no mistakes." As the rebels prepared for the mission, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this discovery was no coincidence. The Void Empire had been hunting for the Dawn Key for generations, and now that they had found it, the enemy would know. If the key truly held the power that the legend suggested, Lena's team would need to move fast, faster than they had ever moved before. The future of humanity might depend on it. But there was something else gnawing at her. The Void Empire's forces were always close. Too close, they had eyes everywhere, and Lena knew they would stop at nothing to seize whatever humanity's last hope might be. Within minutes, the rebels were loaded into their ships, and the ground team was preparing to descend into the decimated ruins of the ancient city. Lena stood on the command deck, staring into the bleak sky as their ship lifted off. Somewhere out there, buried beneath the rubble of New Paris, was the key to saving humanity, or perhaps the key to their final extinction. As the ship broke through the atmosphere, Lena glanced at her team. Each one of them was aware of the stakes. This could be the last mission they ever undertook. The weight of the galaxy seemed to rest on their shoulders, and yet, despite the desperation, there was a spark in their eyes. A sense of hope, however fleeting. It was humanity's greatest weapon, the belief that even in the darkest hour, the light could return. Lena held that belief close, even as the ship descended toward the ruins. She knew this was just the beginning. And whatever happened next, humanity's fate had already been sealed. The Dawn Key was no longer a myth, it was their only hope. The journey to New Paris was brief, but it felt like an eternity to Captain Lena Maris. As the ship descended through the thick clouds and smog that choked Earth's atmosphere, the ruins of the ancient capital emerged from the mist. Cracked skyscrapers, rusted monuments, and the skeletal remains of buildings that had once held the heartbeat of civilization. The city had been bombarded relentlessly by the Void Empire, its grand boulevards now mere scars in the landscape. But somewhere beneath all the destruction, the Dawn Key was waiting. The rebel team landed just outside the old district, where the coordinates indicated the artifact was hidden. Leva's boots crunched on the brittle remains of what was once a thriving city center. The air was thick with the smell of decay, and the silence was broken only by the distant hum of the Void's drones flying overhead. They had made it in time, just barely. "Stay alert," Lena whispered as she scanned the horizon. Her team, including Marcus, tech specialist Ava, and weapons expert Theo, moved swiftly and silently, their eyes trained on every shadow, every movement. The Void's forces had to know they were here by now. The old city was a labyrinth of twisted metal and concrete, a maze of once proud structures now reduced to rubble. According to the maps, the Dawn Key lay beneath a centuries-old cathedral that had survived the initial strikes. The church, still standing against all odds, was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a fitting place for an artifact of such legendary power. As they approached the cathedral, Lena felt a strange pull, a hum deep in her bones, almost as if the ground itself was alive with energy. It was faint at first, but it grew stronger with every step. She couldn't explain it, but she knew the key was close. They reached the cathedral's entrance, a massive set of double doors half fallen from their hinges. Ava moved first, scanning for traps, while Theo kept his rifle trained on the horizon. The team had learned the hard way that danger could come from anywhere, especially with the Void's forces lurking nearby. "Clear," Ava said after a brief moment. She pushed open the door, revealing the interior, dark, cold, and filled with the echoes of history. The cathedral's high, vaulted ceilings were broken, allowing shards of sunlight to filter through the gaps in the structure. The air was thick with dust, and the stone floor was cracked and uneven. As they ventured deeper, Lena's senses sharpened. The strange hum she'd felt earlier was now a steady pulse, reverberating off the walls. Something was here, hidden beneath the cathedral's foundations. But as they descended deeper into the crypts, the hum grew louder, and Lena's pulse quickened. They reached a massive stone door, adorned with intricate carvings of long-forgotten human symbols. The door was sealed shut, and Ava immediately began working on the mechanism. The tension in the air was palpable. Outside, the Void's drones circled, their low hum a constant reminder that time was running out. "I don't like this," Theo muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Something feels wrong." Ava's fingers flew over the ancient console, her expert knowledge of old-world technology allowing her to bypass the locking mechanism. The door groaned open, revealing a dark, narrow passage that led downward. Lena nodded, her hand on the hilt of her weapon. "We move fast. We get what we came for, and we get out. No distractions." The passage was tight and claustrophobic, the walls slick with moisture. As they descended, the hum intensified, vibrating through the stone and into their very bones. Lena's heart raced. Whatever the Dawn Key was, it wasn't just a powerful artifact. It was alive in some way, pulsing with the same energy that had once powered humanity's greatest empires. At the bottom of the passage, they arrived in a chamber, its walls covered with ancient glyphs and symbols, and in the center, atop a raised pedestal, sat the Dawn Key. It was an object of beauty, a sleek, glowing crystal that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. The key was larger than Lena had imagined, its surface etched with intricate designs that seemed to shift as she looked at it. She could feel its power, an overwhelming surge of cosmic energy that called to her like nothing she had ever felt before. "This is it," Lena whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. "The Dawn Key." But before she could reach out to claim it, a crackling noise filled the chamber. The air thickened with tension. The hum abruptly stopped, and a low metallic voice echoed through the space. "You should not have come here." The walls seemed to close in on them, and out of the shadows stepped a figure, tall, dark, and dressed in the distinctive armor of the Void Empire. It was a soldier, but not any soldier. A commander, and one who radiated power. Lena's hand instinctively moved to her weapon. "You're too late." The commander's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Am I? You have no idea what you've unleashed." In that instant, Lena knew that the true battle was only just beginning. The tension in the chamber was suffocating. Lena's fingers tightened around the hilt of her weapon, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. The man who stood before them, clad in the gleaming, black armor of the Void Empire, was not just any soldier. His presence was commanding, his aura filled with the kind of power that made even the hardened rebels uneasy. "You have no idea what you've found, Captain," the commander sneered, his voice cold and mechanical. "The Dawn Key was never meant for the likes of you." Lena's mind raced. She had never seen armor like his, nor had she encountered this level of confidence from a Void officer. The knowledge that they were now facing a formidable enemy hit her like a blow to the gut. This wasn't a mere soldier. This was something far worse, someone who understood the true nature of the Dawn Key. Ava, ever the pragmatist, took a step forward, scanning the room with her tech visor. "He's not alone," she murmured, barely audible. "Energy signatures are spiking. We're not safe here." Lena glanced at Marcus and Theo. "Hold the line. Ava, disable the energy field around the key. We need to take it and leave now." But the commander raised a hand, his fingers outstretched like a conductor commanding an orchestra. "You are too late," he said again, his voice reverberating with an eerie finality. "The Void Empire has long sought the Dawn Key. We were the ones who hid it here, for a reason." Before Lena could react, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and the walls of the chamber seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. The Dawn Key in the center of the room flickered, its glow intensifying until it seemed to blind them with a blinding light. For a moment, Lena's vision blurred, and she felt her mind swim in a dizzying whirl of cosmic power. The commander raised his hand higher, his fingers curled as if manipulating the very fabric of reality. "You think you can control it? That you, mere mortals, can wield this power?" He scoffed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The Dawn Key is not meant to be used by the weak. It is a force of creation and destruction, and only one worthy can unlock its potential." Marcus drew his blaster, taking aim at the commander. "We don't have time for this." But as he fired, the shot seemed to dissipate in midair, as though the very air around the commander had thickened into an impenetrable force field. A wave of energy radiated outward from the commander's hand, and the room erupted into chaos. Theo, reacting instinctively, dove to the side, firing his rifle at the enemy soldier. But the shots ricocheted off an invisible barrier, leaving the commander unharmed. "This isn't good," Theo shouted, scrambling for cover. Lena's mind raced. The commander's abilities were unlike anything they had encountered. It was as if he could manipulate the very space around him, bending reality with every movement. And worse, he seemed to be feeding off the power of the Dawn Key, growing stronger by the second. "We need to get the key," Lena barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Ava, find a way to shut down his control." Ava's fingers flew across her console, her eyes scanning every possible energy source within the chamber. The commander's power surged again, causing the room to tremble violently. The Dawn Key's glow had become blinding, casting shadows across the walls like a storm of light and dark. Suddenly, Ava shouted, "There, the conduit! It's feeding the key's power directly to him." Lena didn't hesitate. With a single motion, she sprang into action, charging toward the pedestal where the Dawn Key hovered. She could feel its energy pulling at her, as if the key itself recognized her as its intended wielder. The closer she got, the more her surroundings distorted, the floor shifted beneath her, and the air buzzed with the raw power of the key. The weight of the energy was overwhelming, but Lena fought through it, pushing herself to the limit. But before she could reach it, the commander's voice rang out again, this time tinged with a hint of amusement. "You're too weak to wield it," he taunted. "You don't even understand what it is. you think you can take it? The price of using the Dawn Key is higher than you could ever imagine." Lena gritted her teeth, her body trembling with the immense power that seemed to flood the chamber. She wasn't going to let this man, this force of the void, stop her. Not now, not when humanity's future was on the line. With a roar of determination, she pushed herself forward, her hand reaching for the glowing crystal. The moment her fingers made contact, the energy surged through her like a bolt of lightning. Her vision exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors, and the world around her seemed to warp and bend. For a heartbeat, Lena felt herself becoming one with the key, its power surging through her veins, unlocking memories and visions of humanity's lost legacy. Then, in an instant, everything stopped. The room went silent. The hum of the Dawn Key was gone. Lena stood frozen, her hand still gripping the crystal, but now the energy felt different, familiar, almost like an extension of herself. The commander, now visibly shaken, staggered back. "Impossible? How?" Lena looked up, her eyes glowing with newfound strength. "The key doesn't belong to you." And with that, the first flame of humanity's resurgence ignited within her. The power of the Dawn Key surged through Lena, a torrent of energy that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Her body hummed with its cosmic force, her mind awash in visions of a future where humanity had risen to unimaginable heights. She could feel the pulse of the key, like the heartbeat of the universe itself, reverberating through every fiber of her being. For a moment, everything around her seemed to slow, as if the fabric of time itself had stretched thin. The room was still, the sounds of the outside world distant, as if they were in a bubble of pure energy. The commander, now crouched low, watching her with wide eyes, looked less like a threat and more like a shadow, insignificant in the face of the Dawn Key's power. Lena's breath came in ragged gasps as the key's energy continued to flood her senses. She had never imagined anything could feel like this, so alive, so connected to everything. She understood now what the commander had meant. The key was not just a weapon, it was a force that could rebuild or destroy, depending on who wielded it. For a brief moment, Lena felt a whisper in her mind, a gentle, ancient voice, speaking through the energy. "Choose wisely. Power has its price." She gripped the key tighter, focusing on the task at hand. The Void Commander before her was still recovering, his expression twisted with disbelief. But he was not beaten, not yet, and Lena knew that her new power would not be enough to stop him if he chose to strike. "You're not getting away with this," the commander spat, his voice thick with rage and disbelief. His armor glowed faintly as he reached for something on his wrist, an ominous device that hummed to life, signaling that he was about to unleash something. Lena's instincts kicked in. She could feel the energy coursing through her, and without fully understanding what she was doing, she raised her hand, palm out toward the commander. The Dawn Key seemed to respond to her will. The air around them crackled, and with a violent burst of energy, the commander was blasted backward, slamming into the stone wall with a deafening crash. The force of the impact left a crater in the stone, and the commander crumpled to the ground, unmoving. The chamber was deathly silent again. For a long moment, Lena stood there, her breathing ragged, her body trembling from the exertion. The Dawn Key still pulsed in her hand, its glow steady, but now muted. It was as if the energy was waiting for her to make the next move, waiting for her to understand what she had just done. The rest of the rebel team, frozen in place, had watched the brief, intense battle unfold with awe and fear. Eva was the first to break the silence, her voice shaky but filled with a new sense of hope. "Lena, you did it. You stopped him." Lena nodded slowly, her heart still pounding in her chest. "For now," she said softly, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. "But this is just the beginning. The Void won't stop hunting us. They'll come for the key, and we won't be ready unless we understand how to use it." Marcus stepped forward, his gaze fixed on the fallen commander. "Is he dead?" Lena glanced at the motionless form, noting that there was still a faint pulse of energy coming from the commander's armor. "No," she said, her voice hardening. "He's still alive. We can't waste time. He'll wake up soon enough, and when he does, he'll bring more of them down on us." Alva approached the key cautiously, her fingers brushing the surface of the glowing crystal. "So what now? We can't just keep running, can we? The Void Empire knows we have it. They'll be tracking us soon." Lena's eyes flickered toward the surface of the key, watching as its glow dimmed slightly. It was almost as if it were communicating with her, asking her to make a decision. "We need to figure out how to unlock its full potential," she said, her voice determined. "The key is humanity's last chance. But if we don't understand how it works, if we don't learn to wield it properly, we won't survive the fight." Theo, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean, unlock its full potential? It's an artifact of unimaginable power. What else is there to understand?" Lena turned to face him, the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her. "There's more to this than just the physical energy it releases. The Dawn Key, it's a conduit. It connects to something deeper. It holds the knowledge of humanity's lost legacy, how we built our greatest empires, how we shaped the universe itself." She paused, her fingers tightening around the key. "If we can unlock that knowledge, if we can learn how to harness what the ancients knew, then we might have a chance to defeat the Void. But I don't think we can do it alone. We need to find the last remnants of humanity's greatest minds, wherever they are. If they still exist, we need them." Marcus nodded grimly. "And how do we find them?" Lena looked back at the fallen commander, her resolve hardening. "We start by finding out everything he knows." As she moved to step over the commander's body, her hand still gripping the Dawn Key, she knew one thing for certain. The fight for humanity's future had only just begun. The Dawn Key pulsed softly in Lena's grip, its faint glow a reminder of both the hope and danger it represented. The chamber still felt heavy with the aftermath of their encounter with the Void Commander, but there was no time to linger. Every moment they spent here in the ruins of New Paris brought them closer to being discovered. The Empire would send reinforcements. They always did. Lena moved quickly, pulling the commander's limp form to the side and searching him for any useful intel. She knew they couldn't afford to leave him behind, not when the key to humanity's survival might lie in his blood. The others began to search the room as well, combing through the wreckage for anything that might help them in their quest. Ava worked with her tech console, trying to tap into any surviving comm signals from the commander's gear. "Anything?" Lena asked, not taking her eyes off the commander, her fingers working through the man's armor. "Yeah, I'm getting some encrypted data. Looks like it's a map of the Empire's operations across the galaxy," Ava replied, her voice laced with tension. "But it's locked tight. I'll need time to crack it." "Do it," Lena ordered, her eyes narrowing. "We can't waste another second." Ava nodded, fingers flying across the console as she worked to decrypt the files. Lena stood, her gaze fixed on the Dawn Key. It lay on the pedestal where the commander had once stood, its energy now muted but still present. A nagging thought tugged at her mind. They had only begun to understand the key's power, and yet, in her hands, it felt like both a gift and a curse. The commander had warned them about the price of using it, but what was the cost? Theo approached cautiously, his eyes darting between the key and the downed commander. "You really think this thing can give us what we need? We've already seen what it can do, but it feels different, dangerous." Lena glanced at him, feeling the weight of his words. She understood his concern. The key wasn't just an object of immense power. It was a part of something much older, something that had been hidden for a reason. A voice in the back of her mind whispered that they were tampering with forces beyond their control, but she silenced it. Humanity's future depended on this. "We don't have a choice," she replied firmly. "We need to know everything. If this key can give us the knowledge we need to fight the Void, then we'll find a way to use it, no matter the cost." Theo didn't respond immediately, but the hesitation in his eyes was palpable. He knew better than anyone that power always came with a price. Lena could see it in his posture, in the tightness of his jaw. But there was no time for doubt, no time for second-guessing. They had no other choice. As Ava continued to work on the commander's encrypted data, Lena took a moment to close her eyes and focus on the pulse of energy from the key. It called to her, urging her to listen, to learn. Slowly, she reached out, her hand hovering over its surface. The moment her fingers brushed against the crystal, a wave of knowledge flooded her senses. Visions of ancient cities, long-lost technologies, and vast starships filled her mind. She saw the rise and fall of empires, the remnants of humanity scattered across the stars. But there were darker visions too, the endless war with the Void Empire, the extinction of entire civilizations, the desolation of worlds. A hollow, cold emptiness stretched out before her, a void that was swallowing everything in its path. Then, just as quickly as the visions had appeared, they vanished, leaving Lena breathless and shaken. The key had given her glimpses of a history she had never known, of a humanity that had once been mighty but had fallen into darkness. "Lena?" Ava's voice broke through the haze of her thoughts. "I've got it. I've decrypted the files." Lena blinked, shaking off the disorienting aftereffects of the key's knowledge. "What have you found?" Ava held up her console, displaying a series of coordinates and a star system map. "There's a research facility hidden in the outer rim, near the edge of known space. It's an old human research outpost, abandoned for centuries, but it looks like the Void has been there recently. I think it's where they've been gathering their information on the Dawn Key." Lena's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The lead they had been waiting for. "We'll head there next," Lena said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. "Prepare the ship, and make sure we're ready to move out in 30 minutes. Theo looked at her, still concerned. "And what about the commander? He'll wake up soon, and if we leave him alive, he'll just bring the Void down on us." Lena stood over the commander's body, her gaze cold. "We can't take any chances. If he wakes up, he'll be more dangerous than ever. Make sure he doesn't." Theo nodded grimly and walked away to set up the final preparations. Lena stood for a moment longer, gazing down at the Dawn Key. It had already shown her so much, too much. And as they prepared to leave for the research facility, she couldn't shake the feeling that the key was somehow altering her. What had it awakened in her, and at what cost? The price of power was high, and Lena knew that no matter what they learned at the outpost, it would be too much to bear alone. As the team made their final preparations, Lena held the key close, its pulse a constant reminder that the true fight was only just beginning. The ship hummed with quiet anticipation as Lena stood at the helm, her fingers brushing lightly over the controls. The crew had made their preparations, and the coordinates Ava had decrypted were set. The stars outside flickered like distant candles in the blackness, a void stretching endlessly before them. Their destination was a remote research outpost, nestled on the edge of the galaxy, forgotten by most, but now a key player in their struggle for survival. Lena felt a weight in the pit of her stomach, an unease that had been growing since she'd touched the Dawn Key. The visions she had experienced haunted her, the knowledge of humanity's rise and fall still fresh in her mind. It felt as though the key was pulling her deeper into its secrets, urging her to uncover more. But the cost of that knowledge was unclear, and Lena had to wonder, was she ready for what lay ahead? "Ava, how long until we reach the coordinates?" Lena asked, her voice cutting through the silence. Ava's voice came through the comm system, a slight crackle in the transmission. "About 3 hours. The outpost is in a sector the Void has been using for their operations. We should expect some resistance, especially if they're still there." "Understood," Lena replied, nodding to herself. She turned her attention to the rest of the crew, who were preparing for what they all knew could be a deadly mission. Theo was double-checking his gear, while Marcus ran through the final systems checks on the ship. The atmosphere was tense, the calm before the storm. "Lena," Theo called out as he finished his prep, "do you think the key's pulling you in? You've been awfully quiet since we left." Lena met his eyes, sensing the concern beneath his words. "It's hard to explain," she admitted. "The key is changing me, Theo. The power, the visions. It's as if I'm seeing things that haven't happened yet. The future feels less like something to be discovered and more like something I'm meant to shape." Marcus shot a glance toward her from his station. "That sounds dangerous. We're talking about a piece of ancient technology with godlike power. If it's really trying to shape you, we need to be cautious. We don't know its full extent." Lena clenched her fist around the hilt of her weapon, her thoughts swirling. She knew they were right, but the desire to learn more, to understand the full potential of the Dawn Key, was overpowering. What if it could give humanity the upper hand? What if it could turn the tide against the Void Empire? "I don't have the luxury of caution," Lena said, her voice hardening. "We have no time. The Void is hunting us. If we don't take the fight to them now, humanity is finished." Theo nodded slowly, his face grim. "Just make sure you don't lose yourself along the way. We're in this together, but you need to stay grounded, Lena." Lena didn't respond. She couldn't. The truth was, she wasn't sure how much of her remained. Every time she touched the Dawn Key, it felt like a piece of her was being rewritten. The visions had shown her possibilities, paths, and destinies, but none of them were hers to claim, not yet. The ship jolted slightly as they entered the outer rim, the stars outside stretching into a blur of light and shadow. Ava's voice came through again, this time with urgency. "We've entered the sector. There's a Void patrol nearby. We'll need to make it past them without detection." Lena's eyes flicked to the holoscreen. A red blip appeared, signaling the Void patrol's location. She scanned the map, quickly calculating their approach. "How many ships?" Lena asked, her mind already working out a strategy. "4, Ava replied. "They're scattered, but they're all armed. This won't be a cakewalk." Lena's mind snapped into focus. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Marcus, get us into position for a surprise strike. Theo, be ready. We don't have much time. The crew moved quickly, setting into their roles with the precision born of countless missions. The hum of the ship's engines deepened as Marcus brought them into the perfect position, close enough to strike, but far enough to remain undetected for a while longer. Lena stood at the helm, watching the patrol's formation. The tension in the air was palpable, and her grip tightened around the control panel. She could feel the pulse of the Dawn Key nearby, a silent partner in their battle. It was as though the key could sense the danger too, its energy thrumming in response to the threat. "Now," Lena commanded. Marcus punched in the final sequence, and the ship lurched forward. In an instant, they were hurtling toward the nearest Void ship, cloaked in the ship's shadows. The first volley of fire exploded on the Void patrol ship, catching them off guard. Sparks erupted from their hull, and the ship veered off course, plummeting into the edge of the asteroid field. Lena's heart raced, but her mind was cold, calculating. There was no room for hesitation. The Void would never stop. If they wanted to get to the outpost and uncover the secrets it held, they had to clear the way. More shots rang out, and the crew fought with precision. Theo's rifle fire was deadly accurate, and Marcus expertly piloted the ship, evading counterattacks with swift maneuvers. For a moment, the battle seemed like a dance, the crew moving together as one, each instinctively knowing their role. As the last Void ship was disabled, the outpost came into view, an ancient structure, half buried in the dust of a forgotten world. Lena's chest tightened. They were so close now, but she knew the true test awaited them within. The Dawn Key's pull was stronger than ever. It was calling her to enter, to uncover its secrets. But the question lingered in the back of her mind. Was she ready to face what it would reveal? And more importantly, was humanity ready to pay the price for its power? The ship came to a screeching halt above the ancient outpost, its engines humming in low, metallic growls. Lena gazed through the viewing ports at the crumbling structure below, a jagged monument to humanity's forgotten past. Long abandoned, the outpost looked like something that had been untouched by time, or perhaps abandoned deliberately. It sat amidst the barren landscape of a desolate world, surrounded by the debris of old ships and scattered remnants of long-lost technology. The Void Empire had been here recently, but there was no sign of current activity. Coordinates locked. Ava's voice came over the comms, breaking the silence. "We're landing in 5 minutes." Lena nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. The Dawn key burned with an almost insistent heat in her grip. It thrummed louder now, its pulse resonating with the planet beneath them, as if it had always been tied to this place. She couldn't ignore the sense of inevitability that had settled over her. Everything had led to this moment. The key, the Void Empire, the outpost itself. This was the last fragment of humanity's lost legacy, and it was here, in this forsaken corner of the universe, that the fate of her people would be decided. Theo stepped up beside her, his eyes scanning the barren landscape below. "You sure this is the place?" he asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Lena didn't take her eyes off the outpost. "It has to be." The coordinates matched perfectly with what Ava decrypted. The Void's presence here means they're already tapping into whatever secrets this place holds. Marcus was already securing their gear, his voice low as he checked his weapon. "Then it's only a matter of time before they come for us, too." Lena turned to face him, her jaw tightening. "That's why we have to get in and out fast. We don't know what we're walking into, and I'm not risking the lives of my people on a hunch." The landing gear hit the dusty ground with a soft thud, and the crew quickly made their way to the exit hatch. The air outside was cold and thin, the planet's dying atmosphere barely clinging to life. The surface was littered with debris, old wrecks of ships that had once arrived here with hopes of discovery, but had left only rot behind. The team moved swiftly, staying low to the ground, their weapons drawn and their eyes alert. Lena felt the weight of the Dawn key at her side, a constant reminder that they were not just here to gather information, they were here to unlock the power of humanity's past and use it to survive the coming storm. The entrance to the outpost was buried beneath a heap of jagged rock, as if the building itself had been consumed by the earth over centuries. Lena knelt beside the debris and pressed her palm to a hidden panel on the side. The Dawn key responded instantly, its energy flaring in response. A low hum vibrated through the air as the ground before them cracked open, revealing an ancient, forgotten doorway. Inside, the air was thick with dust and neglect, but there was a pulse of energy in the air, almost like a heartbeat. Lena led the way, her hand resting on the key as it guided her deeper into the bowels of the facility. Every step felt like crossing into forbidden territory, a place where the veil between humanity's past and future had been torn open. The deeper they went, the more Lena could feel the key pulling her forward, as though it was leading her to something or someone that waited in the shadows. The halls of the outpost were eerily quiet, the walls covered in strange markings that she couldn't decipher. But as they descended into the lower levels, the markings began to glow faintly, reacting to the presence of the key. Suddenly, a low voice echoed through the chamber, sending a ripple of shock through the team. "Ah, so you've come." Lena froze, the hair on the back of her neck standing on end. The voice was smooth, ancient, and unsettlingly calm. It wasn't human, but it was not entirely alien either. A figure emerged from the darkness, a silhouette outlined by the dim light of the facility. It was tall and slender, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the dark, its eyes glowing a soft blue. The figure's presence was both comforting and terrifying at once. Lena's heart raced as she stepped forward, the Dawn key still clutched tightly in her hand. "Who are you?" The figure inclined its head, a faint smile tugging at its lips. "I am what remains of the First Guardians, the keepers of the Dawn key's secrets. You are not the first to seek the power within, but I hope you will be the last. Lena's breath caught in her throat. You've been waiting for me. The Guardian's eyes flickered to the key, then back to her. Not just you. Humanity, as it was once, has not been forgotten. But the price of awakening the Dawn Key is not one that many can bear. How do you know about the key? Theo asked, his voice laced with skepticism. The Guardian's smile widened. I have seen it all. Every rise, every fall, every triumph, every destruction. The key is both the beginning and the end. Its power can reshape the universe, but in the wrong hands, it will bring only ruin. Lena took a step closer, feeling the pull of the key grow stronger. Then tell me how to use it. Tell me how to stop the void. The Guardian's gaze turned solemn. You must first understand the key's true nature, its true purpose. But be warned, once you unlock its full potential, there is no turning back. Lena's heart pounded in her chest. She had come this far, and there was no turning back now. She could feel the weight of the key in her hand, its power thrumming beneath her skin. Tell me what I need to do, she demanded. The Guardian raised a hand, and the walls of the facility seemed to shimmer, revealing hidden chambers, ancient technology, and long-forgotten knowledge. Then prepare yourself. The trials of the Dawn Key are about to begin. The chamber was vast, the walls lined with strange, crystalline structures that pulsed with energy. Lena stood at the center of it all, her heart pounding in her chest as the Guardian's words echoed in her mind. The trials of the Dawn Key are about to begin. Around her, the crew remained tense, weapons still drawn, though their focus was fixed on the towering figure before them. The Guardian's form shimmered, a translucent glow surrounding them like a protective aura. It wasn't human, but its presence was undeniably familiar, almost like a distant echo of something long lost in humanity's history. Lena stepped forward, her hand tightening around the Dawn Key, the only piece of humanity's past that had the potential to save them all or destroy them. The energy of the key seemed to resonate with the crystals embedded in the walls, filling the air with an electric charge. Tell me what I need to do, Lena said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. The Guardian tilted its head, studying her with eyes that glowed like the stars themselves. To unlock the key's power, you must first prove yourself worthy. It has chosen you, but it will not give you its power freely. You must pass through 3 trials, each designed to test your heart, your mind, and your spirit. Lena felt a surge of determination rise within her. She had already come so far, and there was no turning back now. Her people's survival was on the line, and she couldn't afford to fail. The first trial began before she could even prepare herself. The ground beneath her feet seemed to shift, the chamber stretching and warping as if it were alive. The air grew thick, and suddenly, the faces of the crew, Theo, Ava, Marcus, appeared around her, each one twisted in pain and fear. They looked at her with betrayal in their eyes, accusing her of leading them into this trap. Why did you bring us here? Theo's voice echoed in her mind, sharp and accusing. You knew the risks, Lena replied, her voice steady, though doubt gnawed at her. We had no choice. Ava's face appeared next, her expression cold. You think this power will save us? It's too dangerous. We've all seen what it does. Lena clenched her fist around the Dawn Key. The weight of their accusations felt like 1,000 stones pressing down on her chest. She could feel herself slipping, the overwhelming sense of guilt threatening to consume her. Why are you doing this? Marcus's voice cut through the haze. Why are you so obsessed with this key? You've put all of us at risk. Lena's heart raced. The key thrummed against her chest, its energy pulsating with urgency. She could feel it pushing her, urging her to rise above the doubts, to face the darkness within her. The guilt, the fear, those were the trials she needed to conquer. With a forceful exhale, Lena pushed the voices aside. I didn't want any of this, she said quietly, her words firm, but I'm doing it for humanity, for all of us. This is the only way. The hallucination shattered. the voices fading as quickly as they had appeared. Lena stood firm, her resolve solidifying. The first trial had been one of self-doubt, and she had passed it. But she knew that the hardest tests were yet to come. The second trial came swiftly. The chamber shifted once again, and this time, Lena found herself standing alone in the middle of a vast, starry expanse. The stars around her were not like the ones in the sky, but rather swirling energies, each one a swirling maelstrom of chaotic light and sound. A figure appeared in front of her, an embodiment of the void. It was a being of darkness, its form ever shifting, a swirling mass of black tendrils and glowing red eyes. It stood before her, a looming shadow that exuded a suffocating presence. "You think you can defeat me?" the void figure asked, its voice like the growl of a distant storm. "You're nothing, a mere human. You'll never stand against the Empire." Lena felt a rush of adrenaline flood her veins. This was the manifestation of everything the void had ever thrown at her, everything that had tried to tear her down, to extinguish humanity's light. She felt its malice crawling under her skin, seeping into her thoughts. But she didn't flinch. "I'm not just human," Lena said, her voice steady. "I'm the future of humanity, and I won't let you win." The void figure lunged, but Lena wasn't afraid. She felt the dawn key pulse in her hand, its energy surging through her body like fire. The figure recoiled, unable to reach her. Lena stood tall, unwavering, her spirit stronger than the darkness that threatened to consume her. With a scream, she raised the dawn key, and the figure disintegrated in a burst of light. The second trial had been one of fear, and she had faced it head-on. The third trial was the hardest of all. The chamber shifted again, and Lena found herself standing in front of a massive towering door, engraved with ancient symbols she couldn't read. The key thrummed in her palm, as if urging her forward. But as she approached, a deep voice resonated from the door. "You have passed the first 2 trials," it said. "But the final trial is not one of strength. It is one of sacrifice. To wield the full power of the Dawn Key, you must give up that which you hold most dear." Lena's breath caught in her throat. Sacrifice? The words twisted in her mind. She had already given so much, her family, her friends, her past. But now the key demanded more. Tears pricked at her eyes as she thought of the people she loved, the world she had once known, and the future she was fighting to save. Could she truly give up everything for the sake of humanity? The door opened, revealing a chamber of light. Inside was a singular pedestal, and on it, the answer to all her questions. But to claim it, she would have to let go of everything. And in that moment, Lena realized what she had to do. She closed her eyes, letting the tears fall, and whispered to herself, "For humanity." The Dawn Key pulsed, its energy reaching into her soul, and she stepped forward into the light, prepared to face whatever sacrifice awaited her.